You're a straight guy, and you want so badly, right now. You want a partner right now, and you don't have one. What is the likelihood that you're going to get laid? Probably pretty low. Guys, isn't it wonderful when we deal with people who are all ostensibly on the left, kind of going at each other's throats or fighting each other or disagreeing on the internet or just being on Twitter at all? We got some stuff to talk about, and it has to do with some disagreements that are being had. And I want to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring. Pandanom, why in God's name did you redeem 50,001 channel points for an uwu? God damn it. Oh, whoa. Axolotl Supreme, thank you for being on the right side of history with an OWO. Let's go ahead and get into things after the fan art section. This one is from Mr. Stopheles, also known as Cute Dark Arts. It is a Harley Quinn style Suris. This is a Suris that is unpredictable and violent, and the slime Suris on the tail is a bomb. Yes, explodey. The next one we have here is from Ruvak. No context given, but see, I would say this feels great, but y'all are still here. It is cat Suris on top of a laundry machine, because laundry porn is just a terrible, terrible meme in this community that I wish would die. I wish it would die, much like coins and all of the other cringy stuff you guys get into. Speaking of cringy stuff, Sakura has given us Catboy eggnog because we have Catboy milk and Slime Boy milk, so now we have Catboy eggnog. Why are people? Why are people? Why do you guys do this to me and yourselves? Anyway, as always, everybody, thank you all for the fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it in the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get into the conversation at hand. As always, whenever I am talking about somebody or someone on Twitter, please do everything in your power not to go harass them like an asshole. Okay? So I saw this tweet. And I saw this tweet because Vosh did a response to this tweet primarily. And I kind of, you'll figure out which side of the conversation I fall on. But let's go ahead and scroll through this tweet, because we got some words. We got some words about this. So this is from La Madre, and says, men don't fall down the alt-right or men's right activism pipeline because the left isn't doing good enough outreach. They choose to subscribe to fascist ideology because they have an investment in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and the liberation of other groups threatens that. Men don't want to lose the power they gain, real or imagined, from patriarchal structures. As socialists, we know men will benefit in other ways from liberation movements, but many simply don't want to give up the power they have or believe they have under patriarchy. So, I have some disagreements. I have quite a few disagreements. Let's go ahead and get into some of that. So the first thing I want to say is the idea that people don't fall into pipelines, they choose to subscribe to ideologies. We don't actually choose to subscribe to our ideologies, because our ideology is made up of a mixture of beliefs that we have. That's what that mixture, that concoction of everything that we believe as people and how we act on those beliefs, that makes up our ideology. Necessarily, then, one half of that mixture, one half of that concoction, is not something you choose. Nobody can choose their beliefs. You can be convinced of something and then naturally change your position on something, but you do not make a cognizant effort. I've done this thought experiment multiple times. I'll do this thought experiment again right now. If you truly believe that you have volition over your beliefs, then do me a favor right now. I want you to think of something you know is true, and then simply change your belief on it right now. Change what you believe about that thing. The common example I go to is Australia. You currently, if you're watching this video and have a brain cell, you believe Australia exists. Which means if you are watching this video, I want to ask you to change your belief in Australia. You don't believe Australia exists now. You don't. Now, if you find yourself struggling to make that happen, if you find yourself unable to not believe in Australia, congratulations, you are proving my point. Belief is something that largely happens in our subconsciouses. It is something that pilots us, not something we get to pilot. This isn't to say, however, that people aren't responsible for the other half of ideology, which is how you act on those things. But the truth of the matter is, while we have the ability to control how we act on our beliefs, we don't have the ability to control those beliefs. So when you say that people choose to subscribe to fascist ideology, I kind of disagree. If you have a belief that white people are the superior race and that they should dominate all of society and that all technological advances have happened because of white and Western culture, that's not a belief you're going to be able to shake very easily. You're going to need something to shake it. Now, this is... I've gone into detail before. I did a video called Pragmatic Leftism, and I still hold true to what I said in that video. Moving people to the left, moving people to the position where they are harming fewer other people, moving people along that road is not something that requires one group of people. This idea that other people falling down those pipelines is because we didn't do good enough outreach on our own is taking so much of the responsibility off of ourselves that it borderlines, on my opinion, on naivete. Yes, there is an aspect of falling down the alt-right pipeline that is entirely on the person falling down the pipeline. There is a section of that is entirely their fault. However, one of the easiest ways to find yourself falling down a political pipeline on either side of the aisle is isolation. Being isolated from other groups that have different beliefs than you, being isolated from other people who look different than you, act different than you, have different traditions than you. Being isolated from those people is what's going to naturally create that echo chamber, that bubble around you. Is it any wonder that people who find themselves more and more isolated tend to find themselves more and more extreme? People who interact with other people on a daily basis in real life, outside of their echo chamber, outside of what they would consider their in-group, tend to be less extreme. They tend to favor moderation. They tend to favor maintaining people's lives as opposed to violently uplifting them. There can be something that is said about the need for changing the status quo, but largely, if we're talking about far-right extremism, one of the things that goes into that cocktail, that creates that person, that creates that individual that hates other people so much, is isolation from those other people. No, it's not entirely people on the left's fault when people fall down the alt-right pipeline, but it is also very much our responsibility as people who do not want to see more harm created in the world to try to engage in some form of harm intervention. No, you are not responsible if somebody goes out and does something terrible. But if you had the ability to change their mind, why wouldn't you take it? Why wouldn't you try? Then goes on to say that it's because they have an investment in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and liberation of other groups threatens that. This is another statement that I find to be only half true. I think that the people who are invested in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy largely are the content creators, the pundits, the people who are in charge of those movements, the people who push ideology on those movements. Do not think in binaries. It's not live in black neighborhood, therefore will not be racist around black people. It's live in black neighborhood, higher likelihood you won't be. Operate around black people, higher likelihood you won't be racist to black people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. It just means that the likelihood increases. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking about all their interactions in terms of binaries. Your day is either good or bad. A person is either good or bad. A person is either, you know, we think of things in terms of yeses and nos, as opposed to all the grays in between. It says here they feel like in maintaining investment in their position in social hierarchy. Again, I think that largely is about content creators, pundits, people who are in control of those movements. The liberation of other groups does threaten that. The liberation of other groups threatens a lot of conservatives, because a lot of conservatives, people who are in politics, people who are in punditry, they are threatened by those people becoming liberated, because it means that it's so much harder for them to demonize them. When people are free to operate in a sane and free society the same way as everybody else, it makes it almost impossible to demonize them properly, which is terrifying to somebody whose entire career relies on that kind of demonization. But if we talk about the people who fall down the alt-right rabbit hole, we're not talking about the pundits. We're not talking about the politicians. We're talking about regular, everyday Joes. We're talking about people like my audience, people like your audience if you're a content creator. We're talking about people who do not have a lot of influence outside of maybe their immediate social circle. We're talking about people who find themselves isolated. A lot of times, those people don't feel like maintaining their position in social hierarchy. A lot of times, those people feel like their position in social hierarchy is one of victimhood. Sweet Melody, thank you for redeeming your points for an ara. Sylvia Silica, you as well. Thank you for an ara, because it's an armistice. It's an ara armistice. Question for those of you who used to, and this is for the chat, this is also for people on YouTube. If you used to believe in alt-right ideology, if you used to be somebody who followed a Richard Spencer or a Milo Yiannopoulos, or, you know, even something even lighter fare like an Alex Jones, did you think that you were in the position of power the whole time, or were you told that you were on the back foot? Were you told that your race was being replaced, that you were losing your position, you were not in a position of power anymore, and you needed to claw it back? It's not about maintaining your position in the social hierarchy, it's about seeing yourself as a victim. It's about seeing yourself as somebody who is not where they need to be in the social hierarchy, where they're supposed to be, where they want to be in the social hierarchy. It's about being in a position of victimhood, where your ability to operate has been taken away from you by some racial or gendered group. Because the pundits, to maintain their positions of power, which is the part I agree with, are relying on convincing you that you don't have a position of power. They're relying on convincing you that you are a desperate and caged animal, because when you're convinced that you're a desperate and caged animal with no way to defend yourself legitimately, well, we all know what caged animals do when they are starved, hungry, and downtrodden. They get violent. This is how we create stochastic terrorism. I want to agree with this statement wholeheartedly here, the part that I've got highlighted, but I can't, because I feel like it only applies to the people who literally have power. The people who fall down the alt-right rabbit hole are not the people who have power. They're the people who want power. They're the people that feel like society has abandoned them. And there's an awkward thing that happens when you feel like society has abandoned you. You get isolated, and when you get isolated, when you feel like society has abandoned you, you tend to go to the people that believe that they're abandoned as well, which necessarily leads you to more of those MRA and alt-right pundits. Because that's where their communities are. We're past the day and age where communities are naturally found at the local mall. We're at the day and age now where communities are largely found online. And a lot of times they're found surrounding other content creators. Hell, every Discord I'm up in, for the most part, is about a content creator. The part where she goes on to say, men don't want to lose the power they gain, real or imagined from patriarchal structures. Again, I think this largely applies. Well, this one actually, this statement specifically, I agree with more. Because the power that you feel like you have, let's take somebody like biblical gender roles. Let's take the person who agrees with biblical gender roles. They believe that their natural state should be commanding women. Their natural state should be piloting them, should be taking care of them and only taking care of them, stripping autonomy from those women. So that person, yes, they don't want to lose the power they feel like they should have, real or imagined, from patriarchal structures. As socialists, we know men benefit in other ways from liberation movements. Yeah, no, I can give an example of this one. I don't disagree with everything in this tweet. I don't. Because I can give you an example of this. Let's say that you're a straight guy and you want so badly right now. You want a partner right now and you don't have one. What is the likelihood that you're going to get laid? Probably pretty low. But you know what happens when more sex workers are able to actually operate without being impeded by stupid legal laws? Congratulations, if you're just looking for getting laid, you can do that a lot easier now. Yeah, it's going to cost you money in that case, but guess what? You have the ability to get laid. On top of that, though, if other people are liberated, let's talk about other people. Let's say you've got a partner right now. You can get laid, but you want to go one step further. You want to have a threesome. You want to have a foursome. How much easier is it for you to do that if you're able to talk about those things publicly, if you're able to talk about swinging or polyamory or things like that publicly? How much easier is it to do that if those movements are not just hush-hush and always behind closed doors? It's going to be a whole lot easier for you and your partner to plan a threesome if there's not a social stigma attached to it. Yeah, turns out you may not have complete power over your partner if you rip away patriarchy, but congratulations, by liberating a lot of those female-centered movements, sex work being a major one, guess what? Now you actually have access to the things you want. You just have to give a little. Get rid of some of that power that you feel like you're entitled to over a person, and magically that person can give you some of the things you want that you otherwise didn't have. It's a lot of give and take. This part I agree with. Then it says many simply don't want to give up the power they have or believe they have under patriarchy. This part of the statement I do agree with more than this part of the statement. This part is the one that Vosh responded to, and I would put Vosh's tweet up in response to this, but I don't feel like digging for it right now. If you want to go find it, you can. I'm not here to talk about his opinion. And you're not on his channel, either way. But I wanted to talk about that, because there's a lot of disagreement happening in regards to this tweet. I've seen Vosh responding to it. I've seen Keo responding to it. I've seen... if you just look, 413 quote tweets, 18k likes, 1.2 million views. Like, there's a lot of people talking about this one right now. So I wanted to go ahead and weigh in on it, because I feel like this kind of speaks to a lot of the stuff we talk about on the channel right now. So I want to reiterate, people who fall down those alt-right pipelines, yes, they can be aggressors. Yes, they can be awful. Yes, you could even, if you really desperately needed to, some of them, like the Richard Spencers of the world, not the people who fall down, but the people who pilot, you could even use the label evil on. But I think recognizing that people who fall down that pipeline are just as much victim that need outreach as they are terrible person that is clinging on to a real or imagined power, I think that's really important. This is why when I did the video on pragmatic leftism, I pointed out that there were multiple different approaches that were going to be necessary if we were going to pull more people out of those extremist movements. If you join an extremist movement, you join like the Proud Boys or some shit like that because, oh, it's edgy and you get to, go beat up people. Guess what? If you need that edginess, I guarantee you there is a streamer on the left that can give you that edginess without making you a fucking asshole. Go find a Vosh or a Xanderhal or a Demon Mama if you want that kind of edgy commentary without the baggage of transphobia, homophobia, racism, all that other shit. If you want to find a group, if you just need a group, it's important to look for groups that do not, poison your ideology. But it's also important for us to recognize when somebody is looking for one of those communities. If we see somebody that is acting like an asshole, sit down and have a conversation with them. Use the Socratic method. Hey, you feel that way. Like somebody's being, somebody mumbles something about your black friend under their breath. You could take offense to it instantly, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But it's also an equally reasonable thing, maybe even the more reasonable thing, to sit down with them and say, hey, why do you feel that way? Not why you said what you did. Why do you feel that way? Why do you have those emotions attached to those words? You said a racist thing about my friend. You said it under your breath because you wanted to say it for yourself instead of me. But I definitely heard it. I don't care that you said it. I just want to know why. Let them know that, they're in a safe place. They're talking with you. You should be a safe person to talk to. You may find that you take somebody who is currently falling down one of those rabbit holes, that is currently isolated from other people that are different than them. You might be able to incorporate that person to something else that is not going to harm them or poison them. All it takes is reaching out. It isn't a perfect solution. It won't work all the time. But as I said earlier in the video, don't think in binaries. Tales of Atonement says some of us just don't have the patience to sit with those people anymore. I understand that. I understand that. And it's perfectly valid to feel like you don't have the patience to deal with it anymore because that type of negativity will never go away. I get it. But guess what? No matter what you do, that negativity is never going away. You cannot kill racism. You cannot kill transphobia. You cannot kill homophobia. You can only lessen it. You can only shrink the amount of it that exists in the world. You'll never be able to get rid of the idea of prejudice. It may be accepting that you'll never fully be rid of that idea can help in dealing with it more often. It's easier to fight a long battle when you know the battle is going to be long. It's easier to go into those types of conversations when you know that there's a chance of failure and you're willing to accept that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I just wanted to offer my thoughts on this tweet. It got my head spinning in a bunch of ways. So I wanted to go ahead and take a crack at it. So let me know what you guys think down there. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, everyone, insert end video tagline here.